Yeah.
All right, over to you, Tony.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening and making it part of your schedule. My task is to introduce the organization, BGFI, as well as our esteemed speakers. BGFI is a non-profit organization since 1985. We have been working towards the empowerment of visually challenged community through various of our activities. Now we have a few programs. I would quickly mention them. One is definitely knowledge sharing sessions we have, where we invite esteemed panelists from the visually challenged community and non-disabled individuals to share their experience, and so that we learn from them. We have a mentorship program, a virtual mentorship program, through which we try to mentor our visually challenged students and early career professionals. So if you believe that you can be a mentor to any of our students, sign up for that. And if you think that you need some guidance in your profession or your education, you can be a mentee and get valuable guidance from our mentors. ये सब जानकारी हमारे website www.bgfi.in. You can find all of the information to become a mentor or a mentee there. We also do quite a bit of accessibility advocacy initiatives. So that's BGFI in a nutshell. Now let me move on to introduce our esteemed panel of speakers. It's indeed our pride, our first speaker, to welcome Amit Jain, should call Professor Jain, keeping with the academic thing. So Professor Jain did his MBA from IIM Ahmedabad and worked in industry for 8 years. He did his PhD from IIM Cal and a postdoc also, and worked in the areas of disability inclusion. Also associated with University of St. Gallen, I believe it's in Switzerland. He has been a prolific personality from the community who has been strongly advocating for disability inclusion in academia and workspace. Now, Professor Jain is important for us because we rarely get individuals who blend both theory and practice, who can blend both industry and academia. In that sense, Professor Jain's presence is of extreme importance. Now, I never got a chance to meet Professor Jain, but my friends at IIM Cal, one of my friend, he said that, Amit finally put some disability sense into our campus. So that's where Professor Jain, we welcome you, sir. We have Arjun Malhotra, young, vibrant lawyer, did his LLB from Delhi campus, Delhi University campus law center. Prior to that, he had also finished his BA English honors at St. Stephen's. Right now, Power Grid as a lawyer. Also did his LLM in cyber laws. Grids are of conflicts and confrontations. So I'm sure Arjun is doing a great job in dealing with all that. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
Swati with us, our third esteemed speaker. She's got her master's from IIM Bangalore in 2011-13, medalist from Bangalore University. She was a part of Indian youth delegation at CRPD convention at the city of New York in 2015. And she is working with a private firm, if I get it right, it's called Indigene. But I was fortunately, I had the fortune of meeting Swati briefly in IIM Bangalore in 2012 during an inclusion conference, and the kind of the ideas she brought and the excitement she brought on the table, I still remember that very clearly. It's indeed our privilege to have all three of you. Exciting topic, illustrious panel. I'm sure you all will have a great time. Let me now hand over this to my colleague, Sadaf. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. That is great. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. A very warm welcome from the BGFI team of all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Without much ado, I would like to start the panel discussion. Hi, Swati. Are we, and just like to ask the panel first, are we ready to start?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Sure, sure. So, my first question to you, Amit. Uh, so, we are in this work from home from a long time now. And, I understand that your work is primarily into research and stuff like that. How have you been managing your work from home? What are the challenges that you're facing? What are the opportunities that you've got that you think you wouldn't have got otherwise? I'm sure we all have got some opportunities to work from home while working from home. So, what has been the best part of it for you, Amit?
That's a very interesting point because I am one of those people who joined an organization during the lockdown. So my joining and my, you can say till now my whole work with that particular organization, that is SP Jain Institute of Management and Research, has been online. So I've never been to the campus, to the office once. And that brings itself with some nice opportunities as well as some nice challenges. So first and foremost, as everybody knows, one of the big things for us is, or for everyone, including persons with visual impairment, is about the socialization within the organization.
Correct.
And today, that socialization for me happened totally online.
Correct.
So I have to meet with people on Zoom, on other online methods, right? On a call, on a WhatsApp, on a Zoom, but not personally, not physically.
Right.
Now that in itself was a challenge because first getting them, say if you are physically, I can just go in to meet some person, or I can just walking down and I meet some person in like, okay, how are you doing? What are you doing? Now that's something which is not possible. And that's where the initial socialization within an organization happens. So that was one of the challenges it brought. And the other one obviously is to work online and to teach online. So I will come as a researcher as well in this because I was working on, I did some data collection and working on a paper on how people manage the work from home. And the first leg we did a study there, and the second leg we are going to do now after 1 year of lockdown or 1 year of this whole COVID new normal. And what we realized was that as a teaching, one of the challenges comes is you don't know how many students are there doing it, studying when you are teaching, right?
Yes.
In class, at least you know somebody who are teaching, but in a virtual class, you don't know. And that's something which one of the participants also said, that he shared a story that he was teaching in a class and 10 minutes he was speaking, and then somebody called, sir, आपका तो कैमरा नहीं, आपका तो डिस्कनेक्ट हो चुका है. So ऐसा हो जाता है कि they get disconnected. These are the challenges which happens, and that's what the challenge comes out to be. For me, obviously, I can know that it's because I'm a person with I'm partial blind. I have 25% vision, so at least I can know that. But for me, also knowing that कौन कैमरे पे है, कौन नहीं है, becomes a lot of difficult.
Correct.
As far as opportunities goes, I think one of the things which has given me is flexibility. Anyways, academics is famous for flexibility. हमें flexibility रहती है, हम जब करना चाहें काम, जब teaching का अगर schedule नहीं है तो. But this gave more flexibility, and I think that was one of the things which I wanted. That sometimes I am not in a mood to work in the morning. I'm more in a mood to work in the evening.
Correct.
Office hota to you have to go at 9 o'clock. Maybe you can just defer it by say 1 hour, 1 घंटे बाद चले गए, time doing it 10. But यहाँ पर ये है कि even if you don't have a meeting scheduled, अब 11 बजे के बाद भी काम करना शुरू कर सकते हैं, 12 बजे के बाद भी, and you can continue till 10, 11, something of that. So that's the advantage, I would say.
Awesome. Moving on to Arjun.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the challenges that you faced initially during work from home, and what are some of the opportunities that you got due to work from home that you think wouldn't have been possible earlier?
Talking about this work from home in the government sector, was unimaginable before the pandemic came into existence. But yes, now talking about the challenges in a legal department of a PSU
Mm-hmm.
is that you have difficulty in accessing the files.
Correct.
In our not because of the pandemic, but even before that, we
Mm,
have actually digitized a lot of records, but they was not electronic records. They were basically the scanned versions of the files and all, so they
mm,
were easily available. But we had certain issues with the connectivity or one or the other issues, some teething problem, I would call as a teething problem,
mm,
where we were finding difficult to access certain files and then things.
mm.
But eventually with this, some technical interventions and all, we could get it resolved.
Correct.
In my case, I have, talking about my work profile, so I'm handling a lot of litigations, and mostly I go to courts,
Mm.
brief advocates, and, be hardly used to remain in the office.
Okay.
So I was always working from my car even before pandemic came. So that way, that way it was nothing new for me working from my car or working from the home. It was same,
Mm-hmm.
but it gave me opportunity, in saving my time, in saving my travel time.
Mm-hmm.
Almost I used to travel 100 kilometers every day from Delhi to Gurgaon and Gurgaon to High Court, Supreme Court, Appeal, CRC, and going back to office, then back to home. So I always
Wow.
had 100 kilometers on my car.
Wow.
So that saved my time. It give I'm a little more relaxed, could develop, could work more efficiently when I'm working from home. I have my own ambience, I have my own space,
Sure.
which gives me comfort, which gives me, you know breather, what I'll say. It
Correct.
is a which was not possible before that period.
Wow.
So that this why I'll say that work from home is good, because they help us in
Mm,
analyzing things and seeing things from a different angle.
mm,
Even when in a previous world order, I don't just not a world order, just in the previous time,
mm.
nobody would have even bothered. Now even the judges and the bar and the judiciary are striving to go online. It would have taken decades to have imagined the virtual courts, but now that's a reality. We are facing difficulty as a point, but yes, with regulation, with you know not with inculcating that idea that this is the new norm, we could
Mm-hmm.
overcome. And I'll for it is for better India.
Yeah.
If we have accessible judiciary, people will have access to law, people could see what their advocates are doing. It's
Correct.
ultimately good for them, which involve a lot of substantial time. If you have if you as a non-legal person, if you have some case, so you
Correct.
will probably take an off from home, off from office, and then you go to court, go see what your advocate is doing. You have to just go and sign. Now that can be done very easily. You have virtual coaches, you can see, you can go. They are all are doing online hearings through Zoom or through Teams or through in-house developed software. It's a good initiative. um, there are certain challenges with respect to systemic. They are basically systemic impediments, which I'll call. There's
Mm-hmm.
lack of communication, lack of coordination,
Mm-hmm.
and that could be tackled with some kind of some kind of reforms, with
Correct.
some kind of but we have a very robust policy for work from home. We have all the technologies, talking
Correct.
about my work. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I face difficulties which are in nature of systemic. We don't get information, ready information, or some other things.
Sure.
And secondly, yes, this gap, this we are born in a society where go meeting someone physically had a greater impact over meeting someone virtually. So there, yes, this communication gap is there, but
Correct.
we can always take an exception. I also now have started going to office at least once or twice in a week, or whenever the call of duty requires me to go. I'll. It is not very convenient for a visually impaired to work from office, wearing the mask, wearing the headphones, and for straight away for 4 to 5 to 6 hours, 7 8 hours. It's very difficult. Jaws की आवाज तो आप लोगों को पता ही है. It's difficult, and that headphones and all. It's difficult.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable. Your productivity levels drop in. They are like drops down, and it's you cannot depending upon your work, if it's very critical, so you will have some or the other issues concentrating.
Sure. Moving on to Swati with similar question. What challenges did you face in the initial phase of lockdown for managing your work? And I understand that you bringing in a perspective of female handling your family responsibilities as well, coping with your work also must have been very difficult. Having said that, what opportunities as well did you get, which you think you wouldn't have got otherwise?
So thank you for this question, and first of all, thanks for having me here.
Just a second, I'll mute my.
Sure. No problem. Okay, so talking about, I'd just like to talk about the opportunities first. So I think before pandemic, trust me, I didn't know how to cook. So I aram se got up, and then my mom-in-law would cook, pack my dabba, quickly put it in your bag, and then you're back home only in the night, right? So you might get some time to spend with the child. So I think my son and I have spent the maximum time only after this lockdown began, right? So pretty much after maternity, I just went back to office, and all the time we got was over weekends or holidays, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a beautiful opportunity in itself. And this, I should say, is pretty much because of the stage of life I currently am in, right? So there are people who really find work from home good, and some are finding it really stressful. But at least for me, it was good, right? And I think there were quite a few things that happened over this lockdown, which I think were quite opportunistic for me, at least. One, we shifted into a new home. And I think the whole remote working gave me a lot of flexibility to, kind of set up the home and, start making it functional itself. Juggling between the child's school and then your office hours. And now you can actually, my son has class only once a week, right? So we typically can block our calendar and say, I'm not available. So this is the flexibility the company offers. So you are really part of the child's education as well. So at a personal level, these are some of the opportunities, I should say. Talking about challenges, I think pretty much it is similar to what everybody else experienced. You lack the social setup. You really need to get on a call to do things, and you have to learn the collaboration platforms, right? Be it Zoom, your go-to thing. So, and I think this was one way where I really figured out that some of the apps work well on mobile, some work well on desktop, and sometimes you need to use a combination of the two. So again, the adversity turned into an opportunity when we're just trying to explore and figure out how we're going to use it.
Absolutely.
And yeah. And one last point, this one time I really felt that the whole world experienced what a visually challenged experience is, right? For instance, there is a lot of work that happens when people walk across the office corridor, or people are, just saying hi over someone over a coffee in the cafeteria, right? A lot of transactions just get done at that period in time. But, this is something we really couldn't do however efficient we were, right? So we wouldn't know that we already gone past that person, would have actually finished that conversation. But now, I think the whole pandemic put us in a level playing field. Well, I'm just trying to tell this much in a lighter note, not that we're very well off because of this. At least it just gave a flavor of what we are going through all through, right? So I think there's a lot of empathy there. Yeah.
Nice. I'm really, I'm happy with the kind of perspective we got on the table with this just first question. Coming to you, Amit. Again, you talked about conducting online lectures and stuff like that. How are you coping up with, the continuing with the example that you gave? Okay, your camera is disconnected. How are you coping up with that? Furthermore, you must be collaborating and working with your team on cloud platforms like Google Docs or OneDrive, etc. Are they accessible? How are you managing your collaborative work with your team? Any suggestions for our audience in terms of how you're managing the accessibility, if there are any challenges?
So my work, I would say, is not, so I will come here again with two hats. The first hat being my own experience, and second is to share some of the experiences doing the research.
Sure.
Yeah. So coming to my own experiences, accessibility for me is a challenge, but it's not that great a challenge in the sense that since, as I said, I am a person with some vision in place, so I can at least enlarge and see that. Maybe that's not the big issue. And secondly, my own work is more, you can say, we do collaborate, we do a lot of discussions and all, but at the end of the day, it's your session, right? So it's your class, you have to take that class. So as far as collaboration goes, I just do my work. I just share that work, that this is what I have done. This is what you need to do. Like if we have to take a class in collaboration with one of my faculty colleague, I can just share that these are my slides. You can look at your slides and all. And to some extent, the challenge.
Amit, just 1 minute. Sorry, I'll just mute. There's someone who's not on mute. Sure,
Yeah.
Please go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I was saying that you had that challenge. I would not say that challenge was not there because luckily or unluckily, what happened is that at this point of time, SP Jain being an institute where at least in this current batch, there are no persons with visual impairment. So the accessibility issue was not there. So that's, I would say that was the reason that had I had a student with visual impairment, I think things would have been different for me as well as for other faculty members. So that comes from my own experience. But when it comes to experiences, when I talk to people, and their experiences were very varied. So there were people who were saying that because the organization, it all depended on the organization in the previous, what they were doing. So if the organization where some people were working, they were very accommodative, they actually took the trouble of taking care of other things, they actually were easygoing when it comes to lockdown. So we asked this question specifically to the participants that, okay, tell me what happened pre-lockdown and what happened post-lockdown. So what was your experience when you moved to it? And what they said was, those where the organizations were very good pre-lockdown. Once they got into lockdown, they did face some challenge, but they had the processes to manage those challenges, right?
Yes.
So like there was one example where they said that some of the software which we were using, we thought that it's not working, and it's later on it became the challenge that some of these things were not working. But we approached the right people and that thing happened. But the organization which were not ready for that lockdown, the things have to go, have to go online. And Arun's point was right that in public sector, they never thought about some departments to go online. And that something goes with even some private sector. there the challenges came that how we get in online. And there were cases people talked about that they had to had the challenge to get the things done. And that was one of the big issues, I would say, for people, because they had to look at their systems, they had to look at their processes, and it's all being done online. So nobody was there in the office at that point of time. So to now, people are there, at least there are some people in the office. In the month of May and June, when we talked to the people, nobody was there in the office. Now, what you do? So that has been the case. So I think one of the things, in short, if I want to say, is that it's organization policies and their intent. If they're ready to do it, I think they will find the way. And similarly goes with an individual. Yes, there will be certain accessibility challenges, but people will find a way. One, if you can find a workaround, please do so. If you don't find a workaround, talk to the company. Even the software companies would be ready to take care of that.
Sure. Coming
Sadaf,
to
if I can pitch in for a minute.
Yes.
Amit, just to understand a little more about your research, when you set out for the research, what were you looking for? What was your hypothesis, and what were you trying to discover?
This was more of a qualitative research, Vishal. So I would not say there was any hypothesis we were looking at it, but what we wanted to understand at that point of time was how this migration from offline to online happened. What were the enablers and what were the disablers of that shifting? And was there something which was different done by different organizations? And what we realized at that point of time, and we are still in the analysis, one of my friends who is also part of it, who is now teaching at IIM Ranchi, what we realized was two things was very important, which you may say is in always social science research, that's something which is but quite natural. One, that individual mattered a lot, that what is their role within the system. So are they ready? Are they more proactive in getting the things done? Or are they more reactive? So those who were proactive tried to find out ways to do it. And those who were reactive, that, okay, this is the way it is. अगर काम करने को कहा कर देंगे, अगर नहीं करने को कहा तो नहीं करेंगे, हमें क्या फर्क पड़ता है, तनख्वाह तो मिल रही है. So that was one area. And secondly, the organization also mattered. So I remember, just to give you this thing that even Visha and others, just to give you an idea, those organizations which were ready to do some changes. So there was one example where they said that in the first day, even our internet connection through this whatever this online they wanted to connect, that was not getting connected. There was some problem which is coming out with, I think, Citrix or some other thing. They get in touch with the organization, they get in touch with the IT people. They also face some challenge, but at the end of the day, they also try to solve. So it's also the organization way of looking at things.
Correct. So Amit, what was the demographics of the people who participated in the research? Any information on that would be really helpful to understand.
We started with only those people who were working from home. So I think that was one of the limitations, but that was something which we did it purposefully. Because we realized that if we go with okay, are you working from home? And I'm talking about April, May of 2020, when we got the data collected. At that point of time, many of the institutions like the public sector banks and all, they had this policy that you have to come to office because they were not in a position to work from home. But with some government regulations, the persons with disabilities were exempt from that regulation. So they are not working from home. So, and so one, we thought that we will only talk to people who are working from home. Though though one of the people whom we interviewed when we talked to these people, and we asked that in Access India as to whether there is this people who want to participate. One person asked to participate, and it turned out that that person was not actually working from home. Though that person was actually in a tense that what happens once the things goes off, because work is going on within my department, but I'm not part of that thing. That's a different story altogether. So one, they were working from home. Most of them were working from their hometown. So even people who were working in Delhi, Mumbai, they had moved to their hometown. So the challenges they talked about is also about the internet in their hometown. Some people said that one of the challenges that we are facing is that now we are working in the hometown. So what to do that? Right? Most of them were, I would say, between the age of 25 to 40. That's the broad area. Most all but one was from India. So because we were looking at the mostly the Indian part, but when we got the opportunity to interview somebody from outside India, we thought, oh, that's a wonderful thing, because then we come to know what is there in India and what is not there in India. So that was the other profile. Most of them were males, but there was a few females as well. So that has been the basic profile of the candidates. And some were in the banking sector, some were in the other industries. So industry was varied. So that's something which was good.
Sure. So that's amazing to understand. Getting more perspective from the wider population. Thank you so much for sharing that, Amit. I will request Ratul, if you could mute all participants. And I have made the panel the co-host, so you can just mute all the participants, please. All right. So keep putting your questions on the chat panel. We will be covering all the questions towards the end. Yeah, moving on with the same question to Arjun. Arjun, what were the issues, challenges in terms of handling collaborative work? Any technical challenge that you faced in terms of, accessing scanned documents, or maybe some website is not accessible? How do you manage that? Because, when you're working from office, you always have some support available. Obviously, now we can take remote access and handle it, but is there any other way of managing the accessibility challenges?
So, talking about my work profile, my company, there's a specific portal on which we have to work. Fortunately, they were accessible inside the office. So using VPN and getting connected to them was also accessible. I was fortunate enough that when the company have implemented those IT solutions, they built accessibility in it. Maybe it was done purposefully, or I don't know, but they were somehow very much accessible. And we usually collaborate on various filings and various pleadings, and we use our own in-house developed e-office for that. So we don't work horizontally, but the collaboration is vertically. So in that fashion, it works fine for me. And as I suggested earlier, the files were being digitalized. They were scanned. They were not electronic files. So there was always this problem of accessing them. Not accessing them, but readily accessible them whenever I require. So there was always a struggle, to locate them on the servers and to download them, and then to perform OCR and then to read. Sure. So what I did, I started, whatever my work engage at this assigned works were, I started downloading them, whether they were required or not required at point of time, because initially the codes were closed, they were not functioning. So we had very less amount of work, only the work related to opinions or there, no litigation or thing. So we could have I could have downloaded them, performed OCR, made a file management of it, because everything was there at in my computer, which was there in the office, but somehow I could not take everything on our cloud. But yes, with as Mr. Jan has recommended, has suggested that it is the individual effort plus the organization. Our
Correct.
organization was fortunate, and like they were pretty much easy about the data being taken from the servers and being used at the use in our own personal not personal laptop. They are semi-official, because you can use these laptops have been provided to us, but they are not mandatorily used for official work, because we have official workstations also. So
Correct.
we were later on we were provided with tablets and all after a month, 2 to 3 months. So there the things started getting better. And another issue is with respect to when the court started. So there is always this issue with respect to like in a court, like almost 100, 200, 300 participants are there. Because of that, server cannot take much of that load, and there's always this issue with respect to expressing, conveying your arguments to the bench. So that was an issue always we have to face. And the time that I got in terms of courts being closed down, they being non-functional, I could set up my home office. So that, and another challenge in terms of collaboration is with respect to is for performing some SAP functions. So that was later on through technical interventions that was addressed. And yeah, that's
Sure.
it.
Sure. Thank you so much. Swati, coming to you with the same question. That is, any technical challenges that you faced, how do you handle it? Any tips for our audience in terms of managing collaborative work? You know, Swati?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think I work in a corporate setup. So Indigene per se, we have pretty much in our server. So at least accessing files, that was not an issue. So where there was an issue was more in terms of these collaborative platforms that we tend to use, right? So earlier we used it for most of the meetings when we had these meetings mostly with the global folks, so people who were not in our office, right? But this pretty much became a norm of the day, right? When you wake up, either your team huddle or your discussion with the leadership, or you have a training to deliver, everything is now either on GoToMeeting or Slack for us. And I was quite comfortable with GoToMeeting, but Slack was quite new to me, right? And people started pinging, people had channels, and you're just so clueless when all of it happened one shot, right? But there is a solution out there. The real thing is, first of all, we tend to assume, oh, what if it's not accessible, right? So this was my big lesson. So I said, let me just search, let me figure out what's accessible. And then now I understand there are, for certain functionalities, if I need to start a meeting, it's better I use my mobile. If I need to ping someone, I rather use my phone. And if I'm sharing my screen, I use audio through phone and share my screen over the laptop. So I'm on both the devices, right? So there is a kind of workaround that we need to figure out. And I think that was key. And secondly, becoming more comfortable with video calls. And that's something, let me admit, that I am not yet, and I'm just treading the path towards it. So I think for some time you were fine, you don't need to turn it on, but now nobody forces you to do it. But the kind of professionalism, the kind of impact it creates when you turn on your video, whether or
Yes.
not you can see, but
Yes.
it's important that you turn on your video for the rest of the audience to see you,
Yes.
right? It shows confidence, it speaks a lot. So I
Yes.
think that's another area that is requiring effort, and we all needed to do that. And pretty much it's adapting to the new normal, like they say. So
Wow. A
these were some
very,
thoughts.
very important message out there in your response is that, we being blind, we need to understand that if you cannot see, people are seeing you. So it's very important for you to sit on these video conferences in a very professional manner. Amazing message out there for our audience. Thank you so much for bringing this up. I have a very specific question to Arjun in terms of handling the privacy of the documents. I'm sure, coming from a legal background, you must be, handling very, very private information. And some organizations are very rigid in terms of putting it out there on the server. So, what kind of challenges are you facing in terms of dealing with the privacy of the documents that you have, that you access? Are there any challenges at the first place? If yes, what are you doing to resolve them?
The documents which I, largely that are involved in my work largely are the court documents,
Hmm.
and they are in public domain.
Okay.
So the privacy issue is not that much an issue, but yes, we
Hmm.
do have some privacy issues with respect to certain document, with respect to strategizing and taking certain kind of
Hmm. Hmm.
decision making.
Hmm.
There, as a matter of fact, and as a matter of practice, even before or during the lockdown, we are following the same kind of protocol,
Hmm. Hmm.
and the same kind of rules and sets have been followed.
Hmm.
Apart from that, to ensure the privacy of the documents, they are on secured servers, encrypted, located in India. Even if there is any breach of it, at least we have cause of action. We can,
Correct.
we otherwise, if they are located outside the Indian jurisdiction,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
there is always an issue that you cannot sue the other person because of the legal impediment, because of the jurisdictional issues. And
Hmm.
this policy with respect to having the data in India is not during the pandemic. It was even before that. It
Hmm.
was, I
Hmm.
guess, in 2015 or 14 that
Hmm.
Indian government mandated that for all the official purposes, government purposes, they have to use the Indian servers. So we have moved all the data to Indian servers.
Are these
And
servers
being
accessible, Arjun?
these services, yes, they are accessible. NIC have done a good job on making them accessible. If
Awesome.
they are not accessible, they do hear out, they do
Awesome.
respond, and they try to give a solution. Although at some places they are unable to do so, so they'll give you an alternative thing.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yes, there is always an endeavor from the end of NIC or from the IT department
Hmm.
that the sanctity of the information is maintained, information security is not prejudiced, and
Hmm.
at the
Hmm.
same time, giving you the access to these documents.
Sure.
And there are certain information security protocols, standards
Yes.
which you have to comply.
Yes.
So the status quo remains,
Sure.
even during or before pandemic. Whether working from home or whether not working from home, whether working from
Sure.
office.
Sure. Sure. Coming to Amit with another specific question. Amit, you being from an academics background, you have a lot of experience in terms of conducting sessions, online sessions, etc. And all of us now are moving on to conducting online meetings, presenting online our work, etc. Any suggestions in terms of handling as simple as sharing your screen? How do you manage that? How do you manage a video? It's difficult sometimes. You don't have assistants at home to understand the angle of your camera. What would be your message to the participant in terms of taking help whenever required, virtually, when you are presenting or when you are in a meeting that requires support?
Okay. First and foremost, I would talk about this confidentiality thing which you talked
Yes.
about, and
Yes.
there was an interesting discussion with some of the participants. That was because they were talking about financial transactions, and they also have the same issue of confidentiality as the legal documents. And it was something which came to organization all of a sudden, and they realized that no matter how much they want to do it, they still have to face this issue of
Correct.
this challenge of financial documents, financial
Correct.
information. How do I save it? Obviously, doing in a VPN, you can't just copy paste. That's true. But what about anything else, like taking a photograph, anything? So I think the leap of faith organizations had on their employees, I think that's first thing it came up to it. And secondly, I think even the employees. So I remember one of the participants talking about an interesting example of so the participant told me that this particular system was not fully accessible. It was partially accessible. So most of the time I was able to work. But at certain point of time, I used to face some challenges. Now at office, if I had faced some challenges, I can just call my colleague just next sitting to me. यार ये क्या है ये समझा दे जरा इसको. और यार जरा से ये आधा काम तू कर दे. So that is something which is there. But what do I do when I have a system at home? So where do I get the help?
Yes. Yes.
So if your wife is there, if your parents are there, if your kids are there, they may have some idea about it, but not have everything about it. One of the things they did was they used to call their friend. अच्छा ये screen दिख रही है, what should I do with this screen? वो screen दिख रही है. So it was like one talked about an interesting one. They said कि अच्छा मैं तुझे video call करता हूँ WhatsApp पे. You do that.
Interesting.
Because you have to do that, and obviously the organizations also have to leap of faith. So why I put this thing is that this confidentiality brought that issue in my mind as to when you are in a meeting. So for me, most of the time, if I have an issue, I always call my wife saying, even on the documents, I always have this thing. I have to send a very important document. I always ask her. Like a few days back, I was filling my ITR return. So then I asked her that एक बार check कर लो whether it's all right or not. So I think the help from the family members is one of the best things you can do if something is not working fine. But if there's nobody, I think if there's nobody, and if you have to share and if you have to do that in classes, and let me tell you, I'm taking the online classes for the first time. All the time it has been more in-person classes.
Physically class,
So for me, it was a new thing. So sometimes it used to happen that I have to take the help. But if there is no help, I think one of the things I used to do is ask some of the students, ये हो रहा दिक्कत कि नहीं सर नहीं हो पा रहा. So I said, okay, can you help me out? Okay, sir, go this way. Okay, the third tab, the fourth tab. Okay, now so even you learn from the students. So at least for me, that was one of the advantages. Maybe the power hierarchy in India, so that work as a teacher and a student. But I think one of the things which you can do if it's not very confidential, and I have not used it myself, but I have heard other people using it, and people have used it even for some work if they have that confidence, is using applications like Be My Eye. So I think that's one of the examples which one or two people also gave me, that they use the Be My Eye application on their Android and the iOS phone.
Definitely.
Them out quite a lot.
Definitely. So I think, again, a very important message out there: ask for help and you shall get it. there should not be any hesitation from our end, first of all, because unless you tell them that you have this difficulty, your team members will not understand it. Even if they are helpful, they won't be able to do anything for you, right? Thank
Yes,
you.
in this aspect, yes, you have to ask for your help, and in an organization, you have to, create your own space. You
Yes.
have to say, "This is my work. This I can do. This is a problem. There, if I do that work, there will be some problems." And
Yes.
especially in the legal field, I cannot, do some work which I'm not confident of, and that may put high stake matters into risk.
Correct.
So it's better to step down to rather be a little more ambitious. You try to do it, but you should always attempt to do it. You should not step. You should not be the second category of people that Mr. Jain was referring. You have to be proactive, but at the same time you have to take the interest
Sure.
of the organization forward.
Sure. Again, a very important message out there. Set your expectations right is in a nutshell, which I will say. Very, very important for your employers to know what you can do and what you cannot do and
Yes.
expect accordingly. Thank
And
you
when
so
your
much.
leadership is in confidence, and even when leadership changes, then you cannot be replaced. It's impossible.
Sure.
Because you have your own space.
Yes. Swati, would you like to add anything out here?
Sure. Yeah. So, very important points both our panelists have already brought forth, but what I want to add is creating our own network of friends, right? So I think that's a very important component. So trust me, there was I had a person who reported into me, and we did an internal transfer, and that person works with someone else. But even today, while my current reportee is not there for any reason, right, and there is a document, may not be very confidential, and I just want her to make sure that it looks good in terms of alignment. I can always lean upon her, right? And she does it very voluntarily, right? So all of us would have our support system. So you spend a certain amount of time. It's important that you kind of are giving in terms of what your strengths are, and of course be open to ask for help as well, right? So important points that you already brought.
Right. Swati, I would like to ask you this first. Coming from the corporate background, I personally interact and work with different teams depending on the project requirements, right? And everybody that you meet virtually will not know about your disability. Sometimes people just come up and say, okay, I'm sharing my screen, and understand what I'm trying to explain to you. So, I have to always obviously say that, okay, you sharing the screen is not going to be helpful for me. How do you handle your new networking? How is your networking getting affected due to lockdown? And how is your work in turn getting affected because of your, a little, obviously a greater impact has been created on our networking capabilities, having moved on to the virtual, working background. So, yeah.
So again, a very good question, right? So two answers to it, and I'll try to keep the scope a little more broader also. So suppose when we are part of a training session and they're sharing material, sharing screen. So just when we recall to the pre-pandemic era, though we would ask for the PowerPoint decks well in advance of the session, telling we want to go through it. And many a time the excuse we get is, oh, I make changes until the last minute. So, sometimes it becomes very difficult to give it on time, right? But now you don't need to ask for it. Everybody gets the PowerPoint well in advance. Everybody gets the reading material well in advance, right? So these are some good aspects to it. And the second part of it, suppose you are in a one-on-one or a smaller group, and then somebody says, I'm sharing my screen, then pretty much you don't have an option but to tell them that, hey, even if you're sharing your screen, it's not going to help me.
Correct.
right? So can you please email the document to me so that I follow through? In fact, many a time this happens. So I work on a project where I coach people to draft their OKRs, and people say, I've done my first card, can I share my screen? And and you'll have to tell them, okay, can you please send it on email because I have this issue. And more often than not, I think people are quite understanding about it if we express it the right way.
Yes. Yes.
And the third kind of scenario I encounter is sometimes it's a for a brief moment you meet with someone, and sometimes it is not really required that you go and try to explain that you have a certain challenge and this is how you overcome. May not be required, right? If it's a one-off meeting where you are the presenter and the person is not presenting anything at all. So then I think it's much wiser when you turn on your screen and then you make sure you start sharing. Okay, I hope you're able to view my screen, all right? Yeah. So if someone may want to say, okay, can you enlarge it? Can you zoom in? Can you
Yes.
zoom
Yes.
out? And then say, oh, there's a pop-up I can see, right? And for us, Jaws wouldn't have told us that there's a pop-up sitting there. So
Correct.
I think these are some different ways. So depending upon who our audience are, and we can take calls. So, and best of all, if it's your internal meeting, then you can do all your
Yes.
experiments and exploration, telling, okay, shall I click this way? Shall I sit in this way? Is my camera aligned well? And so on. So pretty
Sure.
much this is how I at least handle it.
Thank you. Again, a very important message. Put your message outright. Don't hesitate to mention your challenges. People do understand. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Arjun, same question coming to you. Would you like to add anything to this?
Yes, talking about the camera alignment, I taken my help from my parents and my wife. See whether I'm so with the practice and all. I know how. Yeah, this is how I have to put my hand. Put my screen, laptop screen, so I'll be visible. This is the distance I have to be. Like I should be this much far, and I'm partially sighted, so but I don't want to strain my eye so much. But I often tend to use my eyes. But yeah, this is how I am able,
Correct.
taking help and understanding where the location of the camera,
Correct.
and and yes, this is a very nice practice. We also have inculcated the same practice by sending the briefs in advance, the agenda of the meeting, with not just the pointers, but the detailed deliberations that have to be taken place. And because in India, connectivity is an on and off problem,
Correct. Correct.
whether you have a very superior internet service provider or not, it will be an issue. Because at the end of the day, all of your family members are working from home, and
Sure.
some must be streaming movies on Netflix. Your for parents who have basically leading this retired life must be
Sure.
streaming. So there's a that so हमारे यहाँ पे तो मतलब this is a norm कि whether your video is on or off, they start saying कि अब video तो off कर दो, because we all know we
Correct.
have to work, and it's instead of seeing each other, कम से कम सुनाई ठीक से दे जाए, what other is at least we are able to get the message.
Sure.
And presentations में there is always an issue, and Microsoft Teams is a better solution in my opinion. हमारा काम हो जाता है उससे. I'm able to do it. It's fine. Work is I am able to demonstrate. I'm able to work चल
How's
रहा
your
है, हो जाता है.
networking affecting due to lockdown, Arjun? In terms of networking, how are you managing it?
Yes, there is always this communication gap. There's always this networking issues. Yes, but you always tend to, what kind of networking you are looking forward for. You have to ensure that alternative means you get, you are able to connect to that person. You are able to see who are coming, any other newcomers. Are there any newcomers in your team? You are able to interact with them. You have to be a little more active in a physical space. You are there, or a newcomer is coming, or there's someone who has gone from your team. You get to know. अब यहाँ पे you have to be a little more active. in my team is like we have almost 45-50 people, and uh, it's not that I'll be interacting with them on a regular basis. On one day I'll be interacting with one person, on
Sure.
another day I'll be, and this is an issue in a larger teams.
Sure.
What happened recently, I had an issue, I had a case. So I called up a person and he said, "Oh, I'm not there anymore. I have been transferred." And I'm like, "When were you been transferred?" Like 3 months back. So I thought,
Oh.
yeah, I should keep
Hmm.
in touch with the transfer portals and all. People
Correct.
are moving and all.
Correct.
So that was a that was the biggest, I was embarrassed. So so ये चीजें
Sure.
रहती
Sure.
है. And
Sure.
but social distancing तो करना ही पड़ेगा ना थोड़ा, and there are alternative means also.
Sure.
I
Amit,
can resonate so well with what Arjun is saying. All it ends up with is how much you care about your people. We
yes.
expect people to care about us. That applies to us as well, right? So there are people. It's isolation for all of us. So they don't have network as well like us. So they are also looking for company, and when there are issues at home, especially during COVID, health issues, do we pick up and talk to them, or do we visit them if that's safe enough, right? So it's all comes to care even for our network.
Yes. I think it's a give and take in short.
Yes, it's a challenge for everybody, not just persons with
Hmm.
disabilities specifically.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
I think while it's a common challenge for all, one of the way we, at least I and my team try to do is, hey, all the time we talk about work, and you know, even if a call is around work, and once we've completed that, and provided we have the time, we do keep some time to, you know, just chat over
Chill
informal
out.
stuff as well. And you know, we don't call it non-productive at all, because I think it's equally important, and you know, the rapport between team members
Yes.
is extremely important.
Yes. Yes.
and
Yes.
and you know, while you can do this with the people you've met before, you worked before, I think with the new joinees it's a whole new challenge, right?
Absolutely.
And that's where I think a lot of them say, hey, if you can come on video, I have a face to the name, I have a face to the voice, right? So and those are some things. And then you say okay, and then if there's a common thread of interest that you point, so feel free to talk, and you know, you will have to make those connections, otherwise very soon, since this is becoming the norm, there's no other option than we adopting to it. So
Sure. Sure. Definitely.
I was reading a HBR article recently, and this talked about a very interesting thing, which maybe you can also use. And they had this thing that whenever there's a meeting, say at 6 o'clock, so some people may join at 5:50, some people may join at 5:55, and some may join even at 5:45 if they just want to have it. And that works because that 5 minutes before 6 o'clock, you are intense, and when you talk to somebody, that socialization helps a lot. And
Yes.
I thought that's an interesting one, and then I tried it in 2 or 3 of my meetings with my faculty colleagues. We had a meeting, and those 5-10 minutes we actually joke around, we pull each other's leg, we do all of those stuff, and what that
Correct.
brings is that bring the connect very strong. So when we say,
Yes.
okay, now 6 बज गए, चलो, let's start the work. So at that point of time, you say, ठीक है, अब तो जानता हूँ, at least I know this person more.
Correct. Correct.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In
Amit,
fact,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, in fact, even while working, just pick up the call, talk to people. You can work while you're talking. It's absolutely fun to work while you're talking sometimes, to handle light work. I mean, I do this, and I've developed that I'm more productive when I'm talking to one of my colleagues or others while I'm working, because I'm so bored working, just working. You are so much used to talking around with people, joking around with your team when you're working. It is so refreshing when you have somebody coming and talking to you, right? Yes, Vishal, you were saying something.
Yeah, what I connected with one of the things that Amit just mentioned is a proactive approach of building a network. And initially, Amit, you mentioned when you were doing research, you found people who are proactive and a few others who were reactive. Did you find any pattern? I don't know if it was part of your research. Did you find any pattern in terms of how happy they were? Who were happy in terms of proactive and reactiveness? Stress levels? Anything you discovered there?
Vishal, on this particular aspect, we didn't do it at this point of time. But in general, I could definitely say that those who were proactive were saying that, okay, we still manage it. So everybody was not that happy as that this is the work is going. Was first and foremost, let me put it very bluntly, it was at the time when the lockdown just started. It was, I think, month and a half. So people were also grappling with it. And it's, if you ask, it was whether visually impaired, non-visually impaired, everybody was like, abhi hoga kya? What next? And COVID was at its, the danger of the COVID. I will not say the COVID, but the danger of the COVID was at its peak, right? So at that point of time, I would not say everybody was happy per se, that, theek hai, ghar pe kaam kar rahe hain. That was not the point. But yes, those who were the proactive, they were like, ठीक है देखते हैं क्या होता है and we will do it. While those of the reactive, देखते हैं जो होगा देखा जाएगा. So the approach was a bit different, I would say. But in my previous research, and this is something which I did during my PhD, and what I realized was those who were more proactive in their approach, and that comes to visually impaired more as compared to non-visually impaired, is that those who are proactive, okay, they have a better chance to feel connected within the organization. Now, whether the same will apply in say COVID and work from home, I don't know. That's something which requires some work. But in general, what I saw was those who are proactive tend to get to connect with people and tend to be more connected with the people. Now, you will say that why not, why have to connect it, why it's only our responsibility. Maybe from a justice perspective, yes, why you have to be the one. But at the end of the reality today is that if you are more proactive in your approach, chalo ye karke dekhte hain, chalo wo karke dekhe, let me try out this, let me try out that. Usse what it brings, usse kya hota hai ki we get the chance to see ourselves. So we can't say at the end of the day we don't have anybody else to blame ourselves. हमने तो कोशिश की थी.
Correct. Absolutely.
Building on these 2 points, right? So I was just thinking, while we understand we've got to be proactive and networking is very crucial, what might happen in the near future, right? So again, it could happen, right? It's a possibility. Offices are opening partially. People have started going to office, right? So, but again, trust me, some of us may be the last ones to be called back to office, right? So while you're comfortably able to do work at home, are we going to very soon hit that big risk wherein people want to say, hey, maybe you can continue to work from home remote. You can continue to work remotely. Right?
You have given me a research question.
My next question is going to be that. But you continue, please, Swati.
Yeah, so I was just trying to say, I think again the proactiveness lies back in us telling, maybe I don't want to come to office every other day, but don't make my work remote altogether, right? So I think it's we who need to fight back and say, hey, we can still manage, right? All through people, there are many people who want to ask us, understand our needs, but there are a few more who assume we can't do certain things. And it's so important that we break those barriers and say, I need to figure out ways. As I'll still follow social distancing. Maybe I will wear gloves. Maybe I will know where my seat is, and I make sure that I don't need to touch the doors. Anyways, they've stopped using too many doors. Every door will be kept open since the time of lockdown. So I think it's important that we make that effort and say that we would want to work, because
at least
Yeah, sorry, go
Sorry
ahead.
to interrupt. At least in our office, it's a part of the policy protocol that all the doors have to be open because people want to avoid touching the doors, so they are always open.
Yeah, yeah. And the bigger risk is now when such a thing happens, all of us are left working from home, may lead to isolation. And what about all the work of inclusion we've done for so many years, right? And we said inclusion, inclusion, and then now you say, okay, you stay at home because you can't come to office, and that's a very big problem that we may get into. Yeah.
I think partly you've answered my question, Swati. My next question was many of the people, including employers, have this perspective that, oh, work from home has opened avenues for people with disabilities. Of course, when talking about people with physical disabilities, yes, it has definitely. With physical disabilities, I mean having some issues with their legs, locomotive problems. But for us, talking about people with blindness, uh, what are your perspectives in terms of should we be working always remotely, or you should fight back? So I think you are already.
Very, very good. Very, very good question, right? So I've also been thinking about this quite deeply. Maybe I don't have the right answers, but at this point in time, I think it is very much dependent on the nature of disability. So if someone has a very severe disability, the person might actually choose to work remotely given their conditions, right? So because they have challenges with mobility, they have challenges. I mean, it's again, I don't think an employer can put a mandate and say you need to work remotely, but rather it should be the other way around, right? We decide to say whether we want to work remote or we want to come to office. So that's one part of it. I have another aspect to it itself, right? So when we talk of diversity, inclusion, so we generally do work around two areas, right? One is accessibility of infrastructure, accessibility of IT infrastructure. So I think infrastructure to an extent, again, there is a risk that it can again take a backseat. It might lose its priorities. uh, I mean, I'm again telling it's the worst possibility that can happen. Maybe some of the well-established corporates will continue to do it, whereas the new ones, they can still push it aside and say we have other priorities to address right now, right? We can do away without we can do away without an accessible washroom, right? So these are some things that can happen. But what is something that should be a non-negotiable is the IT accessibility part of it, right? So because we are going very digital, technology is getting advanced really fast, and people are required to adapt to this much, much more faster than ever. And I think this is when I think we really have to ramp up, pull up our socks, and just try to learn as much as we can. Those are some aspects I think that would be points to be pondered. I mean, we still need to ponder upon. There are no solutions to it right now, but yeah, these could be some issues.
Any interesting findings in your research, Amit, when you talk about perspectives of people for working from home for people with disability?
Okay, let me give you a very interesting this thing, because this is something which in the first few interviews we didn't ask, but then later on we started asking this thing. One of the things which comes for a person with disability, visual impairment, is that you have to have that access environment. And Swati has actually pointed out that it can be one, IT accessibility, which I think lockdown has helped in solving that problem. Yes. Because now they have to do it even if they don't want to do it. Yes. But the other one is the physical. And that's where I think for visually impaired, it will be a very unique case in two ways. One, if I have to use my own vehicle, like Arjun is using, okay, whether it's 100 kilometers or something, you can still manage it out, right? Correct. But, okay, working in the office, it will be the same, but at least the transport side of it. But think of a visually impaired who is going to office through public transport. Now, for that person, even if the gates of the office are open, the gates of the metro will be closed, right?
Correct. Correct.
The person has to touch a lot of things. And that's where the challenge comes out when I ask people, what do you think? Because at that point it was total lockdown and people
Correct.
were not thinking of going out. And that's where my next round of research would interviews will talk about that. You have either the person, so suppose there's a place which is not that accessible. So you take the help of people, right? People
Correct.
hold your hand, they guide you to
Correct.
this thing, right?
Correct.
Now people will be scared to hold your hand. What will
Absolutely.
happen then? Because
Absolutely.
then your inaccessibility of working, not working from home, but you have to go to office will become a big challenge. And everybody cannot afford to have their own car and the chauffeur and that get it done,
Sure.
because
Sure.
there will be people at the lower end of the hierarchy. So that would be another big challenge which is going to come, and which
Sure.
I'm not sure. And when it comes to working from home, visually challenged work-wise, I think they will be much more efficient. I'm not saying they're not efficient, but what I'm saying is that maybe because they will have that flexibility, they will be efficient. But what it brings is, because when I talk about inclusion, it's inclusion both in the formal and the informal area. When everybody is at home, we have the level playing field. But when everybody is not at home, some are at office and some are at home, that level playing field goes away. And
Correct.
when you are not there at the place, maybe your informal inclusion or informal way of inclusion does get a hit.
Yes. Yes. Sure. Arjun, quickly, would you like to
Yeah,
add anything?
exactly. I was also of the same opinion that, transport is the biggest problem for a person with visual impairment as well as person with locomotor disability, unless and until they don't have a car. You know, in a in a public transport like metro, using elevators will be an issue. Pressing button, first floor, second floor, platform, whatever, you feel it and you touch it. Now people are, pressing those buttons with a toothpick. They usually carry toothpick, which they later dispose of. A person with visual impairment cannot do. And there is a greater risk of getting infected or infecting others.
Sure.
Right. And in my opinion, at least person with visual impairment and person with locomotor disability, depending on what kind of the disability is, they should be allowed to work from home fully, because they'll be able to contribute better. And, putting someone life at risk is not a good, is not a, it's like, it's against your rights. It's against your fundamental rights. That's not, advisable. When the same can be done in when you are sitting at home.
Sure. All
You
right.
have to systemically, you have to actually adopt yourself. Government institutions, in my opinion, have to, mature.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I think these were interesting perspectives, but coming
Yes.
from a HROD background, I just can't stop myself without saying this, right? So, um, while we say, there is risk, yes, of course there is risk. I'm not denying that at all. But at the same time, what might happen, just like how Amit pointed, is if suppose some of us are in office and some of us, due to various reasons, especially if they quote the reason of a disability to say you got to work remote, I'm sure it will soon impact our bargaining power when it comes to performance,
Yes.
when it comes to increments, when it comes to compensation, a lot of those aspects. So that's set apart, right? So let me give you another perspective of what is happening to the future of work itself, right? So I think gone are the days when we said, okay, there are 9 to 5 jobs, and then came in the MNCs, and then the global culture, all of that, and I think we've soon moving into something called the gig economy, right? And
Yes.
gig economy is all about, for those who may not know it, it's about you have certain skill sets and you actually manage multiple portfolios throughout the day. Morning you are a barber, evening you're a driver, and in between you are a software engineer, right? I mean, it's quite possible, right? And when you're actually doing that, I think you're again put into an open market. Your jobs, your skills, everything is going through a total revamp. And I think while we still debate over this, whether we should work remote, we should do this, I think the world is fast changing. Everybody needs to take ownership to build their own personal brand, build their own identity in the industry, and figure out their own niche areas that they can work with, and which essentially means a lot of upskilling, lot of de-learning as well, right?
Sure.
And this is something I think we all need to focus to learn continuously.
Absolutely. I will quickly move on to the questions asked by Ronald on the chat panel. Just give me a minute.
And meanwhile, if somebody has questions, you could just chat. You could put that in the chat, and we'll pick it up.
Yes. Or you could also unmute yourself, but just give me a minute. I will just ask first Ronald's questions and then give you a chance to unmute and talk to the panel. So Ronald says, what was there a point where you said it was, you thought that everything is out of my hand and I'm not able to handle my personal and professional expectations, especially during the time when the lockdown was at its peak? When everything was not really operable, you were in the four walls of your homes. What was your mental state at that time? Anyone would like to answer this?
See, Ronald,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please.
No, you go ahead. No, I was only going to say this is something that we often experience. It's not a one-off time. So
Even before lockdown or during lockdown, yes, this kind of, phases that the things are beyond my control. Always your self-doubt, you start doing. But, everything is temporary. Just be focused, have confidence in yourself, and you have to build the confidence in you. That's the only mantra I'll say.
that's right. So what I wanted to add on is, these moments are peak when somebody's sick in the family. I had my family go through the whole COVID scenario recently, and my son who had to go through a day long medical procedure. And these are times when you actually find it very, very difficult. The COVID quarantine is not at all easy, right? And there are times when your office is understanding, your office is caring, but you have a deliverable to the client which you cannot afford to postpone, right? You can't do anything. These are moments when it happens. And when I have experienced all of this, every time my only solution has been is, I think all of us do come across adversities. And but I'm so amazed at looking at some of our elders, right? Be it parents-in-laws, or whoever, right? I think they are so more balanced, and they addressing the need of the moment. Sometimes it requires you to just pause and say, okay, what does my present situation demand, and what is my priority right now? And I'm not saying let's forget the future, but there are such times when somebody is going through a grief. A friend of mine lost her father during this whole pandemic, and now at certain points in time you just have to take one day at a time. So those things do happen, but at any point in time it's very important that we know our source of energy, be it yoga, be it meditation, be it a walk, be it just spending time with nature, or just journaling. We could have multiple ways to rewire, unwind, and get back our energy. So I think it's really important that we know what is it that can energize us and put us back on track. So that's something we could do.
Absolutely. Ronald, your next question is already answered about handling technical queries. Sorry, technical challenges. So I'm not going to go there again. Any other questions, participants? You can raise your hands if you're facing challenges in unmuting yourselves. Alt is the shortcut key to unmute yourself if you're on your laptop or systems. कोई भी question है तो आप अपने hands raise कर सकते हैं. Alt Y is the shortcut key on your keyboard. Anybody, any questions? We're almost time. I'll just pause for 2 or 3 seconds more and then wind up.
Just to give you an idea, people ask that, did you find the control? For me, the biggest challenge was two. First, will the organization honor their commitment to give me a job once I'm back in India? So at that point of time, I was in Switzerland doing my postdoc. And secondly, will I be able to come back to India? So these were my two biggest control challenges. So that was there. But yes, there were times where you feel, kya ho raha hai? Let's see what things come out. But obviously, your self control or your self thing that, okay, there is self efficacy that, yes, maybe things are not that great, but yeah, I will manage it out. So that's something which I can say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much on behalf of the entire BGFI team to all the 3 panelists, Amit, Arjun, and Swati. I think you brought amazing perspectives out here. And honestly speaking, I don't feel like ending the discussion because it's getting too interesting. But sticking to the promises of time, thanks a ton for joining us, giving us your time.
Absolutely.
And contributing so well in terms of the different perspectives that you brought on the table. It was simply amazing. And thank you to the participants for joining us on a Saturday evening. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so thank you so
Thanks
much.
for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, BGFI.
Have fun.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks,
Bye.
BGFI. I think pleasure is all ours. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. How to disconnect?
Yeah.
क्या हो गया इसको?